the long answer. The short answer is no, obviously. The long answer is everything we've talked about, the wall, the Jordan River, this increased control over the Jordan River Valley, and the core settlement balance, were expressly designed to make a viable, contiguous, sustainable Palestinian state impossible. They're not, Ma'ale Adumim is not where it is by chance. It divides the West Bank into two. Ariel is not there by chance. It divides the West Bank into yet another, yet again. So in other words, these are designed to chop the West Bank up east-west. The Jordan River Valley, the control of the Jordan River Valley, is designed to ensure that Israel controls entry and exit into whatever Bantustan state, fake state is it created, if whatever it is. The same with the wall. One can go on and on. So, obviously, if you understand why these things were created, you understand that as long as they're maintained, anybody who's talking about a Palestinian state is talking about Wizard of Oz stuff. It's not reality. How can you have a state divided into pieces? I'm not just talking about the Gaza piece and the West Bank piece. I'm talking about the piece north of Ariel, the piece south of Ariel. I'm talking about the piece north of Jerusalem, the piece south of Jerusalem. I'm talking about the pieces west of this belt that Israel insists on maintaining along the Jordan River Valley. And I'm talking about the piece east of the wall, such that about 10% of Palestinian land is taken away west of it. These are not there by coincidence. They're not placed for strategic reasons. Except, I should put it differently, they are placed for strategic reasons, where it is the plan that Begin laid down starting in 1977, which is a strategy of continued, uninterrupted Jewish settlement anywhere in the land of Israel, Eretz Israel, where it is one of continued Israeli control over all aspects of security, entry, exit. Every birth registry, the birth registries for every Palestinian, the citizenship registries for every Palestinian inside the occupied territories is held by Israel. If you have a child, you don't register him or her with the Palestinian Authority. You go to the Palestinian Authority, which goes to the coordination office, which goes to the Israelis, to get permission for your child to be entered in. They control everything west of the Jordan and east of the sea. Everything inside Israel proper and in the Gaza Strip. The same thing is true with those registries in the Gaza Strip. Israel claims it's withdrawn from the Gaza Strip. It still controls the Gaza Strip without. It still controls the population registries. You can't get a Gaza ID without Israeli approval. You can't enter Gaza. I mean, you can go into the tunnels, and if they don't kill you with a drone, you can maybe skulk around for a bit, but you're not there legally, in the sense that the Palestinian Authority has no authority to make you a resident or a citizen. So we're talking about a system, what Americans call a matrix of control, plus a system of occupying territory, such that 60% of the West Bank is under Israeli control. They don't actually live on most of that. Most of that is military zones, green zones, firing zones, and so on and so forth. Some of it is land reserved for the further expansion of the settlements, but the Palestinians don't have any ability to control any of that 40%. And the overwhelming majority of the population is hemmed up in the less than 10% of the West Bank that is Area A. That's not a state. It is inconceivable to talk about that as a state. It does inordinate violence to language to allow that travesty to be called a state. I mean, leave aside the violence of the people. Anybody who respects what they say should not allow themselves to call that a Palestinian state. That is a gussing up Palestinian prison forever. You can use any terms you want, and those would be more honest than calling that a state. So the answer is no, absolutely not, under no circumstances. You would have to completely lift the occupation and Israel's control over the Palestinian people. This is very simple. Not simple to do, but simple to say. And separately, you do not have the right to settle anywhere in the land of Israel. Outside of Palestine, or if you believe in a two-state solution. And one goes from there. We could go on with what would be the prerequisites, Jerusalem, and so on and so forth. I haven't even talked about Jerusalem. It's yet another set of horrific conditions that are being imposed on the quarter of a million or so Palestinians who live there. But all of those things would have to be reversed. And Tony Judd once said, what any politician has done, another politician can undo. I believe that in principle, but I have yet to see the American politician or the Israeli politician who would be able to reverse that dynamic. When we went to 200,000 settlers in the occupied territories. Okay? And they were pretty concentrated in where they were located. There are 650,000. Okay? That is over 15% of the Israeli Jewish population. What politician is going to spit in the eye of 15% of the electorate? I ask you. You say, okay, I'm going to just cross those 15% off, and I'm going to walk all over their interests, and I'm going to try and get reelected. But that is what we have wrought. Our policies have wrought. Okay, Begin and his successors were the people who actually, ran the bulldozers and poured the cement and had the plans, and it was Sharon who flew in the helicopters and picked where the settlements would be. But our money finances that. Our $3 billion a year of military, entirely military aid, sustains that occupation and that oppression of the Palestinians. Hundreds of millions of additional US dollars go in tax-free 501c3 charitable donations to institutions dedicated to expanding Israeli settlement, illegal Israeli settlement in opposition to US policy in the occupied territories. Our Treasury Department and our Justice Department say nothing about that. This is a gross violation of U.S. law. There's nothing charitable about the Friends of the IDF. There's nothing charitable about the yeshivas being built in Hebron. There's nothing charitable about any of them. They're illegal occupation. They sustain and extend an illegal occupation. A violation of international law, something that's in violation of U.S. policy. Hundreds of millions of dollars. We don't even know. That is money we pay in taxes. So somebody else doesn't pay taxes. So they sustain this settlement or that military outfit or whatever it may be. Those are only some of the ways in which this is actually a result of our policy. These decades of building up of this situation where not only is a two-state solution not possible, it's very hard to see how Israel extricates itself in a way that will be in the interest of the Israelis. I mean, what I've said up till now is largely predicated on how bad this is for the United States, because I think it is terrible for the United States in the long run, and obviously how bad it is for the Palestinians. But the Israelis are putting themselves in a position where they are overlords over a population as large as the Jewish population of Israel, which they have, in effect, guaranteed is going to be under their rule, their sovereignty. There is one state between the Mediterranean and the sea. That's the state of Israel. There's no other sovereign authority. The Palestinian Authority has a presidential mausoleum, presidential guards, flags. They have a fife and drum outfit, inherited from the British colonial armies. And they have control of nothing, jurisdiction over nothing, and sovereignty over nothing. It's a sham authority. It's a travesty to call it an authority. It has no authority. In fact, they have to ask permission of the Israelis for President Abbas to travel to Amman.